Hey everyone, it is a full moon in Aries, which has been kind of interesting. It's right, yeah, just leading up to this full moon has been a wee bit interesting. So, full moon in Aries. Aries is just kind of, Aries is God of War. It's also a zodiac sign, me being one. So there's this, Aries can have kind of a like pushy aspect to it, but it can also be very creative. And I highly suggest right now tapping into anything fiery with the creative aspects of self. Don't be like, don't let the rah-rah get to you. Let the creative come in. Find ways to be creative. And remember, creativity is not just like the creation of art or writing or what we consider to be creative. It's a vast scope of just living. You can be simply living your life to the best of your ability, that kind of stuff. Cooking, playing with your cat, well, however you want to define that creativity and what fills you up is how you want to take it. So, another thing too, if you want to end this year on a high note, I would highly suggest subscribing to the new moon. I think I have them called new moon readings, but really we could do either new moon or full moon. It doesn't really matter. It's your choice. But the moon readings are personalized monthly little mini tarot coaching sessions. One of my long-term subscribers, that's how she uses them. She uses it's like this little mini coaching session each month that I just ask her what she wants to focus on, then we go from there. And that gives her the guidance for that month and to sustain what she's working on throughout the last several years. She's been a long-term subscriber, but you can do 3-month, 6-month, or an annual. And if you just want to finish out this year with a big flourish of staying on track and having a little bit more focus than you might have. I know I had a distinct lack of focus and had to pull out the planner the other day to get some. The moon reading subscription can really help with that. But let's get into our tarot reading. I've got the Jacoli Oracle and the Star Child Akashic for this full moon. Okay, this is always back in their books. So this deck doesn't have any names, just has numbers. This is card 32. And the first thing that popped into my mind was what's worth saving and who are you willing to spend your time on? Because right now, I have a new mouse and like the little thing cursor moves with it. It drives me crazy. I had to unplug the little thing. But so, where are you spending your energy, and is what you're saving really worth saving? Strategy is like one of those things that kind of came into play when Mars went into retrograde. Strategy is a really big deal right now. And you want to use strategic thinking and not just be like, yeah, I'm saving it all. Just fix it all, even if you can't. And that's what this card can kind of so as I was saying, strategy is really started to come in with Mars retrograde. And this is part of that. How do you want to be strategic? Where do you want to put your energy? Is it worth putting your energy? Because if you're trying to make someone understand your point of view and they're not willing to do it, they're not willing to go there, they're not willing to meet you even a quarter of the way, halfway at all, then why are you bothering? You know, there's lots of ways you can use your energy. Decide how you want to do it and be really strategic about it right now. You don't have to save everyone you find floating in the ocean. Only the ones you feel are yours. Or, Yeah. You can't save everything. Do your little part. It's like when I worked in refugee resettlement, you often felt very overwhelmed by the immensity of what goes on in the world and the immensity of the horrors that the people you're working with have dealt with. And you can start to like do the scale of how awful something was. It's like, oh yeah, it hasn't been that awful. It's why have I had depressive episodes when it wasn't that awful? And you realize that you can't kind of put like, it's not your pain. You have to come to a realization that all pain is valid and that the emotions you're feeling are perfectly fine and are valid and not invalidated by the fact that your experience was not as horrific as someone else's. And it can be kind of an interesting thing to work with. It's that kind of thing. It's like, where are you willing to put that effort into healing? Where are you putting it into other people? Are you thinking like, oh my God, someone else is so much worse, why I shouldn't be this? Those are some interesting stories we can tell ourselves, and they may not be true. Fully true, at least, in the way you're presenting them. Sometimes how you present the story to yourself changes them. Yeah, I was feeling overwhelmed, and I realized the reason why I was feeling overwhelmed was that I hadn't prioritized anything. I'm just going willy-nilly and doing stuff. And I feel over, and so I'm like, oh, wait a minute, what can I do not to be overwhelmed? And the answer was prioritize art, and I think probably reading, maybe exercise, something like that. But I remember art and prioritization were the two biggies. So making time to have some artistic relief in my life, even if it's like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, it doesn't have to be big. Just taking a little art break somewhere in my day. And then pulling out the Filofax and creating some to-do lists to help me stay more organized, know more where I'm at. Now I don't feel overwhelmed. I feel engaged again. So I went from being overwhelmed to engaged in pretty much one simple step of using prioritization, of making like what needs to happen now. And that really helped. So instead of sitting around saying, oh yeah, I'm so overwhelmed, and not doing anything about my overwhelm, I created steps to create engagement as opposed to overwhelm. Or if you're busy too, one time I was really busy, and busy felt the wrong word, and I started using the word engaged. I'm really engaged. And that really created a different energy. So look at it, like language is big too. So, okay, I feel like I went off on a tangent there, but let's get back on track we have the Six of Cups and Justice, it looks like. So Six of Cups. What are you looking at? What's your like pie in the sky, and are you working towards it? It feels like there's a dream happening in this moon. And we need to engage with that dream and not consider it an illusion. We need to be like, yeah, there's dreams out there, and what are mine? How do I want my dream to show up for me, for you? How do I facilitate my dreams and other people's dreams? How does this come into it? And how can this be much like how I went from overwhelmed to feeling engaged in a couple simple steps? How can you go from feeling that the dream is lost to recapturing that dream, to reholding it, rewilding it, re-enchanting it into your life? Maybe that's setting up an altar for ancestors for Hallows coming up in the end of this month. Goddess shrine, I don't know, whatever it is that's speaking to you. The ancestors, a goddess, it could just be a general altar shrine to the dream. How do you bring this in? How do you see the enchantment in your life? To bring back a little bit of wildness into it too. Unpredictability and spontaneity within a world that, with quarantines and social distancing, have kind of become at times feeling a little smaller than they were before. Not as easy to go and do things just for fun and not be afraid of becoming ill. So where is your dream? And it feels like enchantment and re-enchantment, rewilding, all start to play into this dream of how do I do that? How do I foster this within my life? And the second card is justice. And it feels like, because re-enchanting and rewilding is justice, without that balance, that dreaming that we can start to bring in this full moon, we start to lose a little bit of justice if we're not willing to engage in that. And it's a bit like knowing who we're spending our energy, how we're spending on your energy, the words we're spending our energy on. That's also a justice. How are we bringing that in to ourselves? And justice can have a balancing act to it a little bit when it comes to personal lives. And it feels like that balancing act of re-enchanting the dream and where you're spending that energy. If you're throwing your energy away on people who, once again, aren't meeting you at any point of the way, is that really just? Is that really worth what you're working for? And justice feels, it's like, it's like, sometimes it's hard to verbalize the emotions that show up. Equilibrium was said to me. Equilibrium and justice. Equilibrium and justice follows the dream. So your dreams are also creating justice. And it's easy to see the world as bits and pieces of this and that, and forget that they're all connected. You are part of the world. You are part of the universe. You are part of an ecosystem. And you can't remove yourself from that ecosystem no matter what. You always will be part of that. So keep that kind of stuff in mind. Dream the dream, enchantment, rewilding, altars, shrines, dedication, devotion, things like that. Prayer, faith, love, justice. Energetic boundaries are definitely part of this. So yeah, lots going on. And I grabbed my affirmation deck. This is the first one I made, and it's mine. The font was a little too small, but I still really love this one. Okay. Doom, doom, doom. I am courageous is our affirmation card, and this feels like an affirmation of what we went through. So let's go put those back here. So I am courageous. Bravery is being willing to see the enchantment in a cityscape, to see the wildness that lives within a city. Even the deepest downtown city place, Plaza Center, there is a wildness that lives there. And it's up to you to see it and remind the world it's there. And that is a form of being courageous. So let's do a quick recap, and then I think we'll be done probably. So we got this card 32 from Tricoli Oracle of knowing very, very much that we're using our strategy, we're picking our battles, we're choosing who we're going to have our arguments with, because those people are willing to engage with us in a good faith effort, in an effort to listen. And you got to do the same too, though. You can't just enter in the argument and be the person be like, oh, I'm not going to meet you anywhere. You need to have a meeting of the minds to create anything. And even if that's a meeting of the minds within yourself, of working through doubt that you fostered. So think of it on different levels. It's not necessarily just you engaging with the outside world. It can also be you engaging with your internal world and the doubt that can come into play. The Six of Cups. Building knowing our dreams are not illusions and that we need to reconnect with them, because 2020 has been a really rough year so far. And we need to re-enchant. We need to rewild. We need to see the wonder in ourselves and the world we live in and bring that in fully. Because without that, justice becomes kind of a cold, sterile thing. And while, we do want justice to be blind, it is not. And our rewilding is helping to bring in different components to justice within our life and bring in an equilibrium that we may not have at this point in time, because we are courageous and we're working through our fear. We're working into our dreams and enchantment and rewilding and creating beauty within that and being courageous every time we do that. All right, everyone, have a wonderful full moon, and I will see you at the new moon. Bye-bye.